So it just happened, and Washington, D.C. is up in arms about Judge Jeanine already making an arrest as U.S. Attorney of Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, as she says here, if you're a criminal, you better run for the hills. Now, we know she was appointed after the rhinos made it difficult for Trump to basically have Ed Martin fill in this seat. But now we have Judge Jeanine Pirro, and she makes her first arrest. And now, before I even continue and give you some information about this arrest that she just made, ladies and gentlemen, James Comey, a whole bunch of Democrats are already in fear as to what's about to come next. I think you should be very excited about this. Also, we got big news about the auto pen. James Comer has just come out and said, literally in front of the world, that they have potential staffers who operated in Biden's auto pen have now been identified. Everybody's about to be interviewed, subpoenas about to be, and depositions about to be, and Judge Jeanine Pirro is about to go after them because people are probably going to be criminally charged when it comes to the auto pen and the biggest disaster and the biggest cover-up and scandal in United States history. I'm going to show you that clip in just a second because that's what they're more in fear of. But here, let's go to the arrest. This arrest is huge, and she's not playing around. She also spoke out on this. Retired U.S. Navy admiral found guilty in bribery scheme. She said, if you're a criminal, you better run for the hills. This is her first arrest, ladies and gentlemen. Admiral Robert Burke of Coconut Creek, Florida, was convicted this week of bribery, taking government vendor job in the future exchange for giving a business government contract. After a 5-day trial, a federal jury convicted Burke of conspiracy to conduct bribery, acts affecting personal financial interests, and concealing important information from the United States. Judge Trevor N. McFadden of the United States District Court set the date for August 22nd, 2025. That's when the admiral will be convicted. Special agent in charge, Greg Gross of Naval Criminal Investigation Services, Economic Crimes Field Office Assistant Director of in charge, Stephen J. Jensen of FBI Washington Field Office, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Ferris Pirro, and Matthew R. Galoti, head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division, all announced this verdict. Here we go. This is what she has to say. This is what Judge Jeanine is saying here. She says, when you abuse your position and betray the public trust to line up your own pockets, it undermines the confidence in the government you represent. Our office will, with our law enforcement partners, will root out corruption, be it bribes or illegal contracts, or hold accountable the perpetrators, no matter what title or rank they hold. No matter what rank, no matter who they are, they will be held accountable, says Judge Jeanine Pirro. Burke was a 4-star admiral, which is devastating to even hear about this. This is pretty crazy. But he managed United States Navy activities in Europe, Russia, and the majority of Africa from the years 2020 to 2022, as evidenced by the court records and evidence that was presented throughout the trial. He also commanded thousands of civilians and military personnel during his time period. So yeah, more of the story is basically her first arrest, sending chills down. DC is already in panic for what's about to come. And now she's eyeing what James Comer just said. And this is the biggest scandal in United States history. We have an admiral who was just arrested, who's now been charged, right? Judge Jeanine already had her eyes on that coming in. That's already been prosecuted. Now she has her eyes on the biggest scandal in United States history, the auto pen.
You are going and looking at who is controlling this auto pen, because Joe Biden, I mean, he's demonstrating that he doesn't have all the cognitive capabilities they had. That interview was from 2023.
Yeah, that's hard evidence. Early in the President Biden's term as president, it clearly shows that he was in significant mental decline. It questions who was actually making the decisions. So what we found is not just with the pardons he issued, but many of the executive orders that the courts are now using to Trump-proof many of the executive orders that President Trump is trying to implement to make government more efficient. Many of these executive orders, as well as the pardons of Biden's entire family as a result of our investigation, these were all signed with the auto pen. And clearly from that interview, which was many, many months prior to the heavy use of the auto pen, Joe Biden wasn't capable of making decisions. He wasn't coherent. We think we've identified who the staffers are. Jason, you all have done great work with that over at Heritage Oversight. We're going to bring everyone that we believe was involved in any role in the use of the auto pen. We're going to invite them to come in for a transcribed interview. If they want, then they will receive a subpoena and they will have a full-blown deposition. But we want to find out who was actually making the decisions in the White House during the last 9 months of the Biden administration when he was clearly in mental decline.
Ladies and gentlemen, oh, this is about to be too good. So James Comer, House Oversight Committee Chairman, he's going to handle all the subpoenas. Remember, this is all going to be under oath. By the time this is all said and done, which will be very soon, Judge Jeanine Pirro will then step in. And that's why I'm excited about this. Because if there's anybody more passionate, can you find anybody more passionate than Judge Jeanine to basically look at this and say, okay, this is it? And that's not the only thing, because Trump has come out. Trump says opening the borders wasn't Biden's idea. He blames the auto pen handlers and accuses them of treason. I'm telling you, this scandal has gone on to be the biggest scandal in the United States. I keep saying it because it's true. It's so wild that the president wasn't really the president. So Trump says Joe Biden was not for open borders. He never talked about open borders where criminals of all kinds of shapes and sizes can flow into our country at will. It wasn't his idea to open up the border and to almost destroy our country and cost us hundreds of billions of dollars to get criminals out of our country and go through the process we are going through right now, right? He's basically saying this is not Biden's idea. This was never he was never this guy. He was, at least to a degree, wasn't as progressive as this. So it was the people that knew he was cognitively impaired that took over the auto pen. They stole the presidency of the United States and put us in great danger. This is treason at the highest level, says Trump. They did it to destroy our country. The Joe Biden that everybody knew would never allow drug dealers, gang members, and mentally insane people to come into our country totally unchecked and unvetted. All anyone has to do is look up his record. Something very severe should happen to these treasonous thugs that wanted to destroy our country but couldn't because I came along. Make America great again, says Trump. This right here is why, again, Judge Jeanine is the topic of this conversation. Because now we know James Comer says we know who it was. We're going to subpoena them. We're going to put them under oath. And once they're on the oath, once they start lying on their oath, once this investigation starts, on the oversight committee, it ends up with charges and it ends up being with some violations, treasonous. And I think, look, we already saw charges filed against a congresswoman, charges filed against a congressman, charges filed against a judge that basically corruption. We've seen charges come to corruption. Now, there's some things that this administration is not perfect in doing, which is the Epstein files is number one example of what I feel this administration has totally not kept up their part in. But everything else seems to be going according to plan. Again, we are only in May of 2025. We are only months in. We are not even a year in since January. And we are already seeing some type of results. We are already seeing Judge Jeanine arrest an admiral, right? Not arrest, but you guys know what I mean by basically prosecuting these criminals. She's already getting started. She also says, if you're a criminal, you better run for the hills. We got a lot of stuff going on. This right here is what everybody's scared of. Judge Jeanine gets her hands on people who were behind this auto pen, and this all comes into a conclusion. When it comes to a conclusion, once we know the names, once these people get on their oath, once these people have to, it's gonna go down like never before. And I'm very excited to see what's about to happen, because for years, these people claimed that Joe Biden was cognitive. His cognitive decline is non-existent. The cover-up in the White House, not the cover-up from the media, because they're going to cover up whatever they're going to cover up for their party. But the cover-up in Washington, D.C. at that time is exactly what we need to be talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, that is breaking news for me. I will see you guys on the next one.